we're going to continue on with comparing and ordering fractions. We talked about comparing fractions the other day, and we're going to use our textbook for this today. You will need a pencil and paper, so get that ready. Okay, we're not going to do the pencil and paper quite yet. For this part, I just want you to watch and listen and be thinking and think about the right answer for the question. So no pencil and paper yet for this part. Okay, it says over here, Tien, Olivia, and Annie are racing on a track. Tien is 1/4 of the way, Olivia is 1/3 of the way, and Annie is 1/6 of the way. Who is winning the race, Tien, Olivia, or Annie? So here we have an example, a model. Joshua says, I'll use fraction strips to model the whole track and the parts that Tien and Olivia have run. So let's take a look at that. So right here is the whole track. This is one track, one hole. All the parts are filled in. Now for Tien, he has done this one. Tien is 1/4, so that means there are 4 possible sections, and she has run 1 out of 4 sections. Okay, Olivia, right here, he has done an orange, and her fraction was 1/3, so there should be 3 equal sections, and she has run 1 of those 3 sections. So over here, the question asks, which color shows 1/4? So think about that answer for a second. Okay, so if it's 1/4, that means it has to have 4 sections. So pink is for Tien, and that shows 4 possible sections. It says, how do you know? So how would we answer that? Pink has 4 sections and 1 is colored. So there we go. We answered both parts. We answered the denominator and the numerator. Okay, remember, you're not writing this down right now. You're just listening. B, which is more, 1/3 or 1/4? So here is the 1/4. And here is the 1/3. So 1/3 is more. So we're going to write down for B, 1/3. But how do we know? So these are sort of like when we have done this before, there's always that part that says explain, or explain your thinking, or explain how you know. So you cannot just put the answer. You also have to explain your thinking. So which is more, 1/3 or 1/4? 1/3 is more, because there is more orange than pink. Oops. Or you could say the orange part is bigger than the pink part. C, use a fraction strip to show how far Annie has run. Now he wrote out how big the track was, how much Tien had run, and how much Olivia had run, but he did not do that for Annie. And Annie says 1/6 of the way. So I'm just going to draw another fraction strip on top there. So this is C. So if it is 1/6 of the way, how many parts do we need to divide it into? Well, we need to look at that bottom number, and the bottom number is 6. So to do 6, I'm going to divide it in half. And now I'm going to divide each of these halves into 3 sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 sections. And she ran 1 of them. So we're going to color that in. Okay, so you can see that Annie right here would be the smallest amount that she has run so far. She is the smallest. Who is winning the race? So take a look at Annie, Tien, and Olivia. Take a look at the blue, the pink, and the orange. Who has run the farthest? That would be Olivia. How do you know? You can say because the orange strip is the longest. I don't have room to write that in. The longest. There we go. Okay, so boys and girls, it's important to put the answer, but it's also important to do these parts. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Okay, our only short answer was C, where we just drew the bar. Okay, now I would like you to have your pencil and paper ready, and we're going to do this today. So I think this is page 213, so we will write that down. Today is April 16. You can write that down as well. Okay, so number 1. And we're looking over here, it has an A part, so we're going to put A right there. Okay, number 1 says, who is farther along the track? So they're going to keep this track idea going. So we are going to do what they did in the other question, and we're going to make one whole track, okay? So if somebody has run this entire distance, they have covered all of the track. That is one whole track. And then we'll draw the other ones underneath, and then we can compare really easily. Okay, remember to pause the video until you catch up with the drawing and the coloring. You can use any colors you want, by the way. All right, now let's take a look at A. Ken is 1/8 of the way, and Corey is 1/5 of the way. So let's draw 2 tracks underneath. One is for Ken. Put him over here. One is for Corey. Now the one for Ken is supposed to be 1/8, and I'd like you to mark these things in. And Corey is 1/5. Okay, pause the video and see if you can draw that and color in the amount that they have run. And then when you're done, you can start the video again. All right, if you drew that on your own, you would have divided the 8 sections first into 4 and then into 8. That works really well. And Ken has run one of them. And then for Corey, dividing into 5 is a little bit more tricky. You just have to give it your best shot. 1, 2, 3. And when I do the 4th one, I get that 5th space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And I'm going to color in one of those spaces. So the question said, who is farther along the track? So is Ken farther or Corey farther? So Corey, so we're going to circle that one. Okay. Now what I would like you to do is I would like you to stop the video, and I would like you to do B and C on your own. I'll be checking for that when you take a picture. And you're going to do it exactly the same way. So you don't have to draw the track again if you're drawing right underneath, and you can see how big it is. But draw out the track for each person, put their name on the left-hand side, and write the fraction on the right-hand side. Then you're going to color in the part that they say. Anila is 1/3, Julia is 1/5. And then when you figure out which one is bigger, you're going to circle their name like we did. So I want you to do that for B and C. And then when you're done that, turn the video back on, and we're going to do number 2 together. All right, I'm just making room here for number 2. Okay, number 2. Now you have to use the information that you got in number 1 for number 2. Look what it said. Put these fractions of the track. So you have already done one. Oh, actually, no, that isn't. Okay, this is different. Put these fractions of the track in order from least to greatest. Okay, sorry, I thought we had already done all of those. You have done some of them. You have done 1/8, so you know what that looks like. You have done 1/5. You have done 1/3. And the only one you haven't done is 1/2. So let's draw that one. Okay, so let's do 1/2. And boys and girls, it's really best if you have these just all lined up on top of one another. You can really compare them. So now you're going to go back to the ones that you've drawn before. 1/8, 1/5, now you have 1/2, and you drew 1/3 in one of your other questions. You just have to look back. So we're going to compare these four, and I want you to put them in order from least to greatest. So for number 2, you're going to write a fraction right here, and it is going to be the one that is the smallest. Now, don't look at these numbers. That is not going to tell you which one is the smallest. You need to look at how much space do they take up? How much of the whole do they take up? And I want you to take the smallest one first. So is it 1/8, 1/5, 1/3, or 1/2? Look for the one that takes up the smallest amount of space. Okay, write that one right here. Then put a comma, and then put the rest of the fractions in order, and you should be ending with the biggest one. Pause your video until you are finished that. Great job. All right, number 3. Practicing. What fraction of the yellow block does the red block cover? So here's our yellow block, what it would look like by itself. And here we have the yellow block with the red block. So we're going to look at that right now. What fraction of the yellow block does the red block cover? So look at this red part right here. How much of that? Now the hint right here, boys and girls, is how many sections are there? There are 2 equal sections. They're just flipped opposite of each other. So there are 2 sections all together. And the yellow block covers, the red block covers one of those sections. So if we look at that, we would say, yeah, the red block does cover half, because we're used to thinking about half of that yellow block. And half is 1 out of 2 sections. Okay, what you're going to do right now is you're going to pause the video, and I want you to do question B by yourself. What fraction of the yellow block does the blue block cover? Pause the video and figure that out. And number C. Now you have 2 fractions. You have whatever fraction you wrote for B, and then you have 1/2. Letter C says, which fraction from parts A and B is greater? So again, you're not looking at the numbers, you are looking at the picture. Which one is bigger? Is it this fraction? Does that cover more? Or does this fraction cover more? And then I want you to write the number right there for C. How do you know? Well, I kind of just gave you the answer. So if you're not sure, just rewind and go back in the video a little bit and you'll hear it. Okay, pause and figure that out. Number 4. Draw a picture to show that 3/4 of a loaf of bread is more than 3/8 of it. Okay, we need a loaf of bread. Well, the thing is not to get too fancy about this loaf of bread. So let's just make it look like a loaf of bread like that. And we're going to do another loaf of bread right underneath it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure they're kind of about the same size. We're going to make one of them show 3/4 and one of them show 3/8. Now, right away, there is a problem because look, if I divide this into 4 parts, this makes the parts unequal, okay? So instead of drawing a loaf of bread like that, I'm just going to go back to my tried and true rectangle, okay? So let's make this one 3/4. So divide that into 4 parts. Now remember, the best way to make 8 parts is to make 4 parts first and then divide them again. Okay, what I would like you to do is color in your 3/4 and your 3/8 and then start the video again. So pause. All right, number 5 is a bit of a doozy. It says, these fractions represent parts of a strip of ribbon. Put them in order from least to greatest. Okay, so again, here we go. We're going to draw 4 rectangles. Nice and skinny fraction strip here. We're going to put our fraction beside each one. Got 4/5, 4/10, 4/4, and 4/8. Okay, this first one we need to divide it into 5 parts, which I've said before is tricky. Try your best. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4/10 we're going to divide in half, and then we are going to try to get 10 spots in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not perfect, but pretty good. 4/4 or 4/4 divided in the middle, and then again, so that makes 4 sections. And remember, we just talked about how to do 8. You do 4 first and then divide them all up. Okay, pause the video if you need to get caught up with that. Now, each one of these fraction strips has 4 out of the number colored in. So we're going to color in 4 sections on each fraction strip. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and the instruction was to put them in order from least to greatest. So we are not going to look at these numbers for right now. What I want you to look at is I want you to look at the pictures. So start with the smallest. Which one takes up the smallest amount of space? All right, if you guessed 4/10, you are right. That is the smallest. So we're going to put that one first. And what I'd like you to do is put the rest of them in order right now. And you should be ending with the biggest colored strip, the strip that has the most color in it. So pause the video and do that, please. Okay, if you did this properly, you should have next 4/8, then 4/5, then lastly 4/4 or 4/4, which we learned last time equals 1 whole item. So if you have all the parts out of the parts that are listed, that is complete 1 whole item. So that's going to be the biggest. Now I have a weird thing to point out to you here. And that is, we went in order from least, so that's smallest, to greatest. True. But now, look at this. 10 is the biggest number. 8, 5, and then 4 is the smallest number. That's kind of opposite of what we were looking at, isn't it? But I want you to think about this with me for a minute. If something is divided into 10 sections, now 10 is the biggest denominator, but think about it. If something's chopped up into 10 sections, those sections are going to be pretty small, aren't they? And yeah, they are. If we're looking right here, those sections are pretty small. If something is only chopped up into 4 sections, Well, those sections are going to be a bit bigger, aren't they? So it sort of works the opposite in fractions sometimes. When you divide things into big numbers and into a lot of sections, then if you're giving the same amount, 4 of each, you really want to have the bigger sections. And the bigger sections are like this one, right? So 4 is a smaller number, but that gives us bigger sections. Okay? So the best way to always think about this is a chocolate bar. You do not have to copy this part down right now, but just think about this. So here's a chocolate bar. I say to Miss Dosanjh, Miss Dosanjh, would you like 1/8 of a chocolate bar, or would you like 1/4 of a chocolate bar? And Miss Dosanjh thinks for a minute. Oh, 8. 8's a big number. I definitely want 1/8 of a chocolate bar. But that's not the right way to think about that at all. If I'm dividing something into 8 pieces, those pieces are going to get smaller. Mrs. Ratzlaff would say, I want 1/4 of a chocolate bar, because now the chocolate bar is only divided into 4 pieces, so those pieces are going to be bigger. So in the end, Mrs. Ratzlaff wins again, and I get more chocolate. That is the moral of the story. We're not going to do number 6, so don't worry about that. Number 7 is your final task of the day. What I would like you to do is I would like you to do all of number 7 by yourself. Okay, the instructions are right there. The only one that has a bit of a longer answer is letter D, because it says explain how you know. So you have to solve it and then you have to write an answer. So try to do number 7A, B, C, and D. And it says to draw squares. If I was you, I would do rectangles again, those fraction strips that we've been drawing, just because you're familiar with that. And I think that'll make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so good luck with that one.